Good evening. I'm Malekeh Amini, and I'm founder and CEO of Trayt. I'm very excited to be here and presenting to you tonight. We are an enterprise software and data platform that's improving assessments, treatments, and outcomes in brain and behavioral disorders. We have a multidisciplinary team of subject matter experts as our founding team. I am an engineer by background and have been in the healthcare space for the past 28 years. My co-founder, Dr. Feinstein, is the founder of the Autism Center at Stanford and a psychiatrist by background, chief of psychiatry in several clinics, thought-leading clinics. And Hitesh Kalra, our CTO, is coming to us from an IoT space and some very deep experiences in the security space, which obviously is important to us. I'm also very fortunate to have my entire amazing team here sitting in that back row. So any questions, and including Amir sitting right here, if any questions come up, please feel free to reach any of us after the presentation. We currently have deployments across the Texas Medical Center, and we have a very healthy pipeline of some additional agreements that we're negotiating with thought-leading clinics across the country. We've been part of several accelerators, including the plug-and-play current cohorts, and also have won several awards for our product and company. Brain remains one of the white spaces in healthcare, and it's primarily due to its complex process of diagnosing and treating. There is no real diagnostic criteria or diagnostic mechanism for assessing patients. You can't do an X-ray and say this patient has depression. That's one of the complexities in this space. And it is focused on single diagnoses, and it's paper-based, so it makes it very difficult to actually look at across the several conditions that a patient might have and actually measure their overall, have an overall measurement of the condition a patient is facing. It is very inefficient, and so the workflow is complex. Most importantly, it ignores all of the overlapping symptoms or other comorbidities that tend to accompany these conditions. And because it's observation-based, data is really subsampled and spotty. So in between those patient visits, this is what the data looks like. Those blue lines are those single diagnosis assessments. And in between patient visits, there really is no additional data on how a patient is responding to any treatments. So Trayt has created a proprietary comorbidity data platform that actually captures all of those key overlapping symptoms under one platform. And the symptoms include symptoms of psychiatric disorders, other medical conditions, and also environmental and external factors, most importantly, social determinants of health and childhood trauma. On top of this content, we've built two applications. The first one is our Comorbidity Assessment, which is currently under validation and will compete with some of the existing standardized single diagnosis assessments. And it is an assessment that's a comorbidity assessment, so it looks at those overlapping symptoms. And we've developed a proprietary way of measuring each symptom at a more granular level, and in a very subjective world, this is a mechanism for a more objective assessment. The second application that we've developed is a personalized continuous outcomes tracking, which is personalized by the patient or for the patient, and is personalized by the patient and by their clinician to measure very specific symptoms and outcomes that are relevant to the treatment. It does address some of the issues of having data in between those patient visits. The machine learning algorithms that we've built on top of these applications actually look at these symptom clusters and identify the best starting points for diagnosing a patient, driving a new assessment, and also targeting better treatments at them. We started in neurodevelopmental disorders, but have now we're now across all patient populations, adolescents, adults, and now geriatrics. We measure patients' chief complaints, a clinician-defined or requested symptom or outcomes. We have CBT thought logs. We look at treatment adherence and also daily environmental influencers in order to clean up and take as much noise out of the data as possible. We also, in terms of insights, provide patient-level progress and treatment, responses to treatment, also clinic-level and patient population or population health level insights. To our enterprise customers, in addition to patient-centered outcomes and much deeper data-driven decision-making platforms, we also significantly improve their workflow by providing an end-to-end solution to them. And we really improve patient satisfaction by not only creating a more connected relationship with their clinician, but also by removing the burden of care from the patients and their caregivers. We integrate across technologies. Our patient-facing mobile app is the main source of collection of data for our patients and caregivers. We can integrate with remote monitoring technologies, and we have a web-based portal for clinicians, which also integrates with EMRs on some standard key areas in order to remove any redundancy within the workflow. So if you wanted to look at a patient journey in this process, a patient has symptoms, they've made an appointment to come in and see a clinician. Automatically an email at scheduling will go out to the patient to download the app, complete Trayt's Comorbidity Assessment, and what we call the Trayt intake form, which includes the assessment and combines all treatments and some other historical health information. So when the patient comes in, based on those clusters of symptoms, a clinician can right away see where is the right starting point for assessments and a better targeted treatment. An example would be if a patient, for example, has inability to focus, then maybe the first place currently that the clinician would start is do the Vanderbilt and an ADHD assessment. But if you look at the cluster of those symptoms, inability to focus might be associated with depression or with abdominal pain, or something that would direct the clinician to a first course of treatment before going back to those traditional mechanisms of assessing and treating a patient. Then the patient obviously gets holistic treatment. They go out and they continuously report their outcomes. And so now when the patient comes in after 90 days, this is what the information looks like. We have integrated the standardized blue line assessments into the platform for a side-by-side comparison. But now you can see that in between patient visits, there are significantly more and more frequent data that the clinician has at their disposal. We do generate revenues and subscription through outcomes tracking for our clinics and in clinical trials. And we have had incoming requests from health plans to use our intake, only our intake, as a way of measuring the level of care required and measuring or assessing risk. Obviously, it's quite a large market. We have a number of other clinics that we would love to enroll and clinical trials that we would love to participate in. There are some competitors in our space, but because we start at intake and we have comprehensive comorbidity data, which is the only, where we are the only platform offering that service, we actually end up not creating a need for our customers to plug in any of our competitors along this spectrum of the clinical journey. The barriers to entry, obviously, in our space are high switching costs. Once you've enrolled a clinic, it's extremely difficult to move them, and we have a patent pending content and product, which again creates another barrier to entry. We have raised $4 million to date, and in order for us to meet the needs of those healthy pipelines that we have actually ahead of us, and a number of very interesting clinical validations that are ongoing right now, we are raising another equity round to support that commercialization and clinical validation. Our advisory team is as diverse as the rest of our team, and they are hands-on involved in building our business and our product. The future of behavioral health is most likely not going to be a scan or an X-ray that defines a patient's health condition or the disorder. It is going to be platforms like Trayt that actually combine the patient's brain, medical conditions, and other factors and look at patients holistically to target better treatments at them and improve their outcomes. Thank you so much.
We can just take 2 questions if there are any quick questions.
You mentioned you have several accelerators that you participated in.
Yes.
I was under the impression that you go to one accelerator and you stay with them.
Accelerators have a finite life. So we actually went through the Launchpad Digital Health Accelerator in San Francisco for one of their cohorts. And once you graduate, you can be part of kind of later and growing stages of accelerators. So we went to the Texas Medical Center Innovation Institute as another part of an accelerator that actually looked more at adoption within their own hospital systems. And it was a little bit later stage. We had a product we were going to deploy and do more pilots and validations. And at Plug and Play, we are again looking at kind of more on the commercialization side and business development and relationship with some of the corporate partners that are part of this program. So every stage, I think you can go through various different accelerator programs that are beneficial to you at that time. So, yes.
Most mental disorders are actually treated by primary care doctors, like more frequently mental health specialists. Have you looked at how your platform might integrate with the workflow for primary care?
Yeah, we have actually looked at that. So because we are a comorbidity, so number one is if the mental health is being treated by the primary care, it might explain part of the 80% poor outcome sometimes, because I think it's sometimes unclear where the mental health symptoms are coming from. We have actually looked at, because we're a comorbidity platform, we by definition expand outside of the mental health or psychiatric departments and into other clinics. Once you have those clusters and it identifies where the first line of treatment needs to be, we fit into the workflow in a way of the outcomes are being tracked by that primary care physician for those symptoms that are related. And there is always a pulse and the outcomes on the mental health components that are also shared across these clinicians that are treating. So we really are, in fact, expanding outside of the in a short period of time, it's harder to explain some of the details, but we definitely are expanding outside of psychiatry or psychology into developmental pediatrics, general pediatrics, internal medicine, and even in other health conditions such as oncology, keeping a pulse on mental health given that the two have a significant impact on each other and progress across those outcomes. So yes, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.